Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which is focused on capturing the true value of your cloud for your business. This webinar is brought to you by Express Computer in partnership with IBM. I'm Mohit Rathod, Senior Correspondent with Express Computer. Digitization and cloud have accelerated across industries, and this is adding pressure to upskill and transform businesses everywhere in order to maintain their advantage. All enterprises, even the most regulated ones, they need a fresh strategy to build and modernize for their most secure workloads while keeping complete control of red data. So today in this webinar, you will learn how enterprises are combining speed and interoperability of open cloud native technology with enterprise level productivity and security and taking it everywhere. But before we go ahead with the session, I will give you some information about the webinar. This is an audio and video webinar which is being broadcasted live and it will be available as on demand. We will have a round of Q&A at the end of the webinar. However, you can send in your questions at any time during the webinar using the questions box. We will also have a quick feedback form at the end of this webinar. So I request you all to send your responses into the same. If you face any technical issues, please try to refresh your browser or else reach out to our team using the same questions box. If you have any further questions or if you wish to interact with the speakers, please leave a comment using the questions box and the IBM team will contact you post the webinar. So that's all from my side now. Now I would like to introduce our speakers for the day. So today we are joined by Sebastian, Public Cloud Executive, IBM India and South Asia. We also have Bibhuti Rath, Cloud Technical Architect, IBM India and South Asia. So without taking much of your time, I now invite Aju to take the session forward. Aju, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mohit, and thanks for the introduction and starting off this webinar. At the outset, I'd like to wish all our viewers well. I hope all of you, your families are keeping well, and wish you the best going forward as well. Coming to the main topic of today's session, which is capturing the true value of cloud for your business. Now, we are all aware that cloud is not something which is new to the enterprise. It has been around for some time. A lot of enterprises have already environments in which multiple cloud instances exist. Yet we see that there is a lot of hesitancy and dependency on moving some of the core applications or core workloads that enterprises have on board. Now we've heard several reasons for that, and we'll just skip to the next chart. Right? We've heard from many clients facing these challenges, and they've given us clear feedback of what we need to solve them. While there are challenges, in regulated industries, there are challenges in non-regulated industries as well, which are technology-related challenges. For example, non-availability of latency networks, etc. That impedes an enterprise's adoption of cloud. Right? Now, that's on one side in terms of the impediments of adopting cloud. On the other side, there are a lot of additional stuff that clients are expecting from technology providers and hyperscalers to actually accelerate their growth and their agility as organizations. For example, they want to be in an environment where they need the same consumption experience that they get in public cloud everywhere. All the great innovations that we have in hyperscale environments, the ability to bring down the cost of technology, the ability to provide shared kind of service which will allow customers.
So as I was saying, on the one side, there are challenges that clients have, in adopting public cloud, especially for core workloads or workloads that require, higher regulatory compliances, some impediments like technology impediments, network availability, security, etc. On the other hand, even clients are looking for a superior experience in their particular environment, despite having multiple clouds in their environments, despite running hybrid cloud kind of environments. They're looking for a seamless consumption experience like they get on public cloud in some of their on-prem environments as well. At the same time, they would also like to access and utilize some of the great innovations that we have on public cloud environments, uh, so that they can make them work in their organizations and get their organization to be more agile and tune them to growth. Some of the things that they shared with us are which would help them do this is stuff like what you see on your screen right now: single management and operations experience. Managing multiple instances is not very easy. It is always an expensive proposition when you have a multi-cloud kind of an environment, because you need to not only have manage multiple consoles, which is complex in itself, but also need to have the skills across a wide variety of hyperscale platforms to do that, right? The other part of this is the customers do not want to be directly involved in managing platforms. They would be more happy to pay attention to their workloads and how their workloads are delivering to their end business objectives, right? Managing a platform is always an overhead for an enterprise, right? So why should enterprises invest in whatever is required to manage platforms, where they can use that investment to actually go run or optimize on their workloads or use cases. The other thing that we hear very common is that clients are looking for flexibility to run applications or workloads wherever they want it to be run. Right? Not all applications or workloads are conducive to run on public cloud environments. Right? Some of them need to be run locally within client data centers or wherever they are located, even if they are in hosted data centers or different hyperscalers, etc. And they do not want to be pushed to actually move or consolidate to one single environment, which may not be an optimized way of operations, right? So these are the challenges that clients are grappling uh, uh, with today, right? And we did a small survey about 270 clients. And Vibhuti, if you could skip to the next chart, right? It will throw up some of the insights that we could get out of this survey that we run. When we run this survey across about 270 clients, about 32% of them were existing clients of IBM, and we had about 68% that those were not existing clients but prospects that we were talking to, right? And a lot of things fell in place as to what we have been hearing while we were designing a lot of our services around public cloud and hybrid cloud. Things, I mean, technology limitations like latency, right? Data processing for some industries need to happen locally, at the point of where data is getting generated. In industries such as banking and finance, data residency is a huge impediment, especially when it comes to leveraging public cloud services in terms of security, in terms of how the data is processed. There is always this concern of whether sensitive private information will get shared across multiple locations or within or outside of the boundary that they should reside in, right? In existing environments, clients are grappling with the lack of agility, or the lack of speed with which they can innovate because of various challenges of procuring material, security issues, inconsistent management platforms across. And today, because a lot of the people have embraced a multi-cloud kind of environment, another big a couple of big issues that we are seeing is around visibility and management, right? Because the sprawl is getting so huge, sometimes it becomes difficult to control the expanse of that sprawl, right, at the cost of mm, uh, curtailing the growth of the applications. right? You're always in a fix as to what to do, right? Sometimes, there are the specific functions within the organization do not get the visibility even of the sprawl, because some applications get developed by line of businesses and they create ownership, etc. The there are other things that I spoke about in terms of which came up in this survey, which is the availability of talent, which is a big challenge for large enterprises that are running multi-cloud environments, right? You have multiple hyperscalers, you have different platforms on which you run your businesses on, you have Intel technology, you have Unix AI technology. How do you get all these skills into one basket or one enterprise, right? So that you are resolving things faster, you're developing things faster. That is again a challenge for a lot of enterprises. And when you're spread across multiple platforms, another thing that you got to be mindful about is the lack of version control, the lack of consistent use of applications across all the platforms, security policies across all the platforms, right? So those are some of the real world challenges that clients are facing in enterprise cloud environments, and due to which they are looking for solutions that can provide a consistent experience across wherever they are based out of, whether it is on-prem, their own data centers, hosted data centers, or any of the hyperscalers, right? And this is where we as IBM have taken a lead in terms of creating a new offering that possibly gives client uh, a similar experience of what uh, public cloud would do on an on-prem kind of an experience. And we will just,
Now, there's
I'm sorry, was that a question? Okay, it's okay. Let's continue. So Vibhuti, if you could just flip to the next chart. And this is when we've launched a product called IBM Cloud Satellite, right? It enables client to distribute their core application services into any location, whether it's at the edge, whether it's at is on premises, whether it is on other hosted private clouds, or whether it is other private clouds, or any of the hyperscalers, AWS, Google, Azure, right? Any of the hyperscalers, right? Now, the way that we are able to deliver this is that with the acquisition of Red Hat, we've been able to standardize a lot of the IBM public cloud offerings around Kubernetes and OpenShift. So the more open source that you are able to embrace in public cloud offerings, the wider the reach you have in terms of having adopted an open standard. You are able to then quickly deploy and deliver across a wider deployment platform, right? Now, in an IBM Cloud Satellite kind of an environment, what typically would happen technically is that there would be a bunch of Linux servers, that would uh, get built up, whether in the customer's own environment, or whether it is any other landscape, as I said earlier, right? And on top of those Linux servers, we provide satellite managed hosts, right? Which is a completely cloud-based offering, is a consumption-based offering, right? A SaaS kind of a product, right? Which it actually mirrors IBM public cloud onto the environment that you're running satellite on, right? Now, the reason why we do this is that once you have a satellite kind of an environment running on your desired location, then through a link that we set up, the satellite link that we set up back to the IBM public cloud, you can leverage all the public cloud services directly onto the satellite location, right? Now, one of the common questions that come up is that suppose you're using services like cloud pak for data, or any of the data services that you're using, any databases that you're using from the public cloud catalog. uh, will the data go back to the public cloud uh, you know pod, or will it reside in the satellite? It absolutely resides in the satellite. The data plane remains, as absolutely at the location it is currently at, and only the services and the control plane is what gets controlled by the public cloud pod, right? The other advantage that you get with IBM Cloud Satellite is that you can deploy this across other hyperscalers as well, which gives you the ability to have a single pane kind of a control over the entire sprawl that you have of your environment, right? You can manage applications across multiple landscapes or across multiple deployment locations. At the same time, you can optimize your own environment and see and direct workloads which are best suited to the most optimum end landscape. For example, some workloads may not be uh, suited for public cloud because of a lot of issues in terms of security, etc. But at the same time, you may want access to cloud-based services like AI, machine learning, data services, which are frankly speaking slightly more expensive if you want to set up dedicated onto your on-prem kind of environment, right? Why do we need to actually even go make that investment? What we can do with satellite is make those services available locally as and when you need them on a consumption basis, and then you can use them, and then as soon as you stop consuming, you stop paying for them, right? So it's a consistent public cloud kind of an experience that you get with IBM Cloud Satellite. Now, we can help set up this entire, environment end to end, including providing the infrastructure on which you can run satellite, right? We've got a completely private managed IS offering offered by one of our services teams, right? That can give you this entire package of infrastructure uh, on an as a service basis. We can offer this as an appliance, something called Cloud Pack for Systems, which actually bundles all these features into a single appliance, and similar to what you would have heard in the market about Outpost or from AWS, etc. You know, the appliance can be co-located in your on-prem data center, right? And obviously, there is a lot of with this you get a lot of as a service offerings that you can pull in from the public cloud catalog, right? So that's the answer that we have to a lot of the things that we hear from customers all across. How do they experience public cloud kind of consumption in their on-prem kind of environments and leverage the benefits and the innovation. Vibhuti, if you could just skip to the next chart, please. And as I mentioned, the foremost capability that IBM Cloud Satellite brings to clients is the ability to access the cloud catalog within their own data centers. In a way, if you put it, you're running a public cloud within the four walls of your own data center, right? It gives you a lot of advantages. It gives you the ability to rapidly build applications on open source environments, like on open standard environments like Kubernetes and OpenShift. It gives you the ability to secure your entire platform by using managed platforms from the IBM Cloud Catalog. you know you can simply shift the responsibility to the IBM SRE to manage the entire end-to-end SLAs, and they will help you keep pace with the open source and the updates and the version controls that are required to be compliant in your particular environment. It completely automates the the operations and the services, right? Uh, yeah, as I mentioned before, the complete cloud catalog, we have just started with a smaller portion right now, but as we speak, we are building on capabilities to bring the entire catalog that we have on IBM Cloud onto satellite environments. Um And IBM Cloud SRE operated services are delivered in all satellite locations, irrespective of where they are, even in competitive hyperscalers. We can deliver for the satellite element SRE operated services, right? So it is a complete end-to-end package that we have, where the client is only left with worrying about the application or the workloads that they want to run, the use cases that they want to create, and the entire platform is managed through satellite by IBM and IBM Cloud. So that's the capability that we are bringing with IBM Cloud Satellite. And then coming to day two operations, right? Once you've deployed day two operations, satellite gives you the capability of managing your entire environment through a single pane of glass, right? What the two words that you need to really you get an advantage with satellite is operations and observability. We have a You'll have a central cloud dashboard for operation of services across all the satellite environments that you have set across, irrespective of where they are, right? You control identity and access management, key management, certificate management of the satellite locations through this console, right? You'll have centralized logging, monitoring. So it takes a lot of the overheads away from the enterprise organization, and which helps them to focus on how to achieve their business objectives, rather than impeding them on, look, I want to go take advantage of a public cloud kind of a service, but the industry that I am in, or the business that I am in, or the environment that I'm in is limiting my ability to go access those kind of services. But if I could have those services, I could have grown, or I could have shown better agility. So those kind of issues is what IBM Cloud Satellite uh, is intended to manage, right? And we've got some really interesting use cases as well, right? And I will call on my colleague Vibhuti in a couple of minutes to discuss one such interesting use case, and also to explain how this is actually delivered, right? uh, I mean, while I've tried to tie down how it makes possible business sense for industries, especially industries that are regulated, to leverage satellite kind of an offering, and capture the value of IBM Cloud in their own enterprises, in their own environments, or in any environment that they choose, right? And get the benefits of that, and get to their business objectives, right? uh, Things like inventory management, deployment of microservices, automatically discovering and running clusters on satellite locations, keeping in touch with the your entire deployment across multiple environments, right? That is another big challenge that enterprises are facing. You get an answer to all that uh, with the IBM Cloud Satellite offering, right? Now I'll call upon Bibhuti, my colleague, to talk to you about a very interesting use case. I hope you'll find it very entertaining as well. Right, Bibhuti, if you could uh, take over.
Yep, thanks, Aju. Okay, so as you mentioned, the whole idea of satellite is to reach where the customer is. For example, if you're running a particular application that has huge amount of data that's getting generated, uh, and you want to make sense out of that data, you want to capitalize on uh, cloud native technologies, cloud native services like AI and ML, but don't want to get that data out of a data center. This is where satellite will help. Again, the other use case, like as you mentioned, this is also going to help you in addressing your compliance requirement of not moving the data out of your data center. And again, if you are running AI and ML workflow in a particular data center, but your data is out of that particular data center. Let's say your data is in your on-premises, you are running an AI and ML uh, in from a cloud data center of a cloud provider. So that data latency is going to take a lot of toll, and the amount of data the AI and ML will pull in to build that data lake, this is also going to cost you a lot in terms of your network bandwidth when it comes to bandwidth usage and ingress and egress. So those are the challenges that satellite addresses. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a particular use case that we recently, in fact, in the month of February, we did with NASA and International Space Station. So what we did with them is to address a particular challenge that they have been facing from years, not just in from past few days or few months. This is an issue that they've been facing from years, and this is what we did to address that particular uh, challenge. So I'll play a quick video that will help you to understand this, what kind of challenge they faced and what we did to address that, and then we'll talk that in detail. So let me just quickly go ahead and play that video.
3, 2, 1, 0.
From the earliest days of Apollo, when NASA landed the first humans on the moon, IBM has had the distinct honor of playing a key role in NASA's space exploration efforts. Fast forward 50 years to today, when the International Space Station is helping to lay the groundwork for living and working in space, a baseline for future NASA missions. Traveling at over 17,000 miles per hour and orbiting the Earth every 90 minutes, the ISS offers a one-of-a-kind microgravity environment where crew members perform research that cannot be done anywhere else. Critical research like DNA sequencing on the ISS provides foundational knowledge that will be essential as NASA seeks to venture further into space than ever before. However, analyzing this research often requires data to be downlinked to Earth and processed by personnel on the ground, a procedure that can take several weeks and delay results. That's where IBM comes in partnership with NASA, ISS National Lab, HPE, and Red Hat. IBM created the Edge Computing and Space solution, eliminating the need to move massive libraries of DNA sequencing data by presenting containerized analytical code locally right on the ISS where the data originates. This solution has the potential to cut analysis time by nearly 50%, opening the door for many new mission possibilities. In addition, NASA researchers will use this platform to more rapidly develop, test, and push code to the ISS in a fraction of the time by leveraging Red Hat code-ready containers and connecting to IBM Cloud running OpenShift on the ground. This groundbreaking partnership will not only expedite NASA's ISS research, but will help to lay the foundation for future exploration opportunities on ISS and beyond. We can't wait to support what comes next.
Now, if you look at this particular use case, this is a very small use case with a very minimal investment. But if you look at the benefit that it provides, the benefits are huge in terms of not just for NASA, not just for ISS, it also provides a huge benefit on an architecture level to each one of us. Now, if you look at a particular edge computing scenario, which is becoming quite relevant these days, this particular architecture is going to help us in a major way in achieving edge computing benefits, and also it's going to help us in a lot of way in terms of keeping the data at the source rather than making the data travel to a lot of places for execution and also to make sense out of that particular data. So the whole idea is to reach where the data is, bring those compute power, bring those software and analytics power, bring those cloud native power closer to the data, closer to the application, rather than making that particular data travel a whole lot of distance or a whole lot of geographies or a whole lot of miles or kilometers to and pay for that particular bandwidth usage. And not just money, it also takes a lot of time. So if you look at International Space Station, a particular file to be transferred back and then go send it back to the space station, it takes not just seconds or minutes, it takes days. So similarly, if you look at the amount of data that we are generating as enterprises, as companies, it's in terabytes these days. Now, if you imagine the amount of that amount of data, terabytes of data to send across to a particular place just for processing or just for making sense out of it, it's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to cost a lot of resources as well. So instead, the whole idea of satellite is to meet where the data is rather than making that data travel all the way. So if you look at this particular diagram, what we do is we create a simple, secure tunnel to customer's data center. So that data center can be your data center, it can be a colo data center, it can be a cloud provider, it can be any of the hyperscalers where your compute and your databases are running. Now, once we establish that particular connectivity as a simple light connectivity that is done over internet, and once we have that connectivity, we provide a satellite link and deploy our cloud services using that satellite link to that particular data center. So if you look at if you're trying to provision an OpenShift cluster, we can do that within minutes in your data center right from one of our cloud data centers, which means you don't really need to worry about how am I going to deploy an OpenShift cluster, or how am I going to deploy a Postgres SQL database cluster in my environment. We can do that in minutes through our automation, and you just have to provide us connectivity and your compute resources. It doesn't matter wherever they are. Now, let me quickly show you a small demo in terms of how that happens. We saw that in a video, we saw that in a PowerPoint diagram, but let me show you how that happens in a ideal scenario. Let's say, yeah, okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to IBM Cloud Portal, which is a pretty simple portal that says cloud.ibm.com/catalog. And this is where all the IBM Cloud services are located. If you want to browse across, you can go through it. It's a site that doesn't need any login or anything. You can straight away go to the site and browse the services that we have. Now, if you look at here, let me enlarge this a bit and me quickly change to an account and go to services. So if you go to services, you'd see there are a number of services listed here. You would see almost close to 190 odd services that we have listed around here and that we provide from different data centers, including the one that we have in Chennai. Now, there are different categories. Compute, you would see within compute we have virtual servers, bare metal servers, or VMware solutions, our power servers. So there are a lot of compute resources that you'd find. Let's say we want to talk about containers. We saw in the use case video that is talking about Red Hat OpenShift. Now, let's say I want to deploy Red Hat OpenShift quickly. Now, if you click on that, it will take you to Red Hat OpenShift provisioning page. You can select a version that you want. Let's say I'll go to the latest one and select licenses and select, let's say I want to deploy it in a data center, which is say in Asia Pacific, and let's say in Chennai. I would deploy it the nearest one, which is in Chennai. Now, once I select that, it will deploy a 3-node OpenShift cluster onto Chennai virtual server in our Chennai data center. Now, what if I want to deploy that into a satellite location? Now, this satellite location can be anywhere. For me, it is in Chennai. My servers are switched off. That's why it's showing me a warning. But uh, ignoring that, if I want to define a location in my data center, I can do that. If I want to define a location in in AWS data center, I can also do that. Now, once you have a location defined, the next step is to select that location and ask IBM Cloud to deploy that particular service, which is this OpenShift service, into that data center. Once it is deployed, you have an OpenShift cluster ready to run and ready to be consumed. But the whole idea is to make it uniform across, whether you're running in one of our cloud data centers or in your data center, the experience remains same. You don't have to do anything extra. You just have to select the location where you want to deploy this cluster. Now, this is one example of IBM Cloud OpenShift getting deployed. And as we move ahead, we are adding more and more services. In fact, this quarter, you're going to add Postgres database as a service into this, which means you can deploy Postgres database as a service onto your data center, completely managed by IBM Cloud. You don't have to worry about who's managing that, who's patching that, who's taking care of the database updates, who's taking care of the database availability. That's all been taken care by IBM Cloud. You just have to provide your infrastructure, and that infrastructure can be anywhere. It can be on your premises, it can be in any of the cloud providers data center. So it doesn't matter. All we need is a VM running Red Hat on top of it. And once we have a satellite connectivity to it, we can control those VMs and deploy our services. Now, same if you look at, let's say, if I go into my dashboard, you would see I only have one particular satellite location defined here. And once I have many, I will see many. Let's say I want to add a particular satellite location. What I need to do. So let me go into adding a new satellite location and then figure out how to, okay, let's say I'll delete this and try to create a new one. So I've deleted that. Now I'm trying to create a new location. So if once I create a new location, you can see it is asking me for two different things. One is where is your infrastructure is located. The first option is it located in any of the AWS data center? If yes, it would ask me my AWS account details to be connected into that. If I have it in my own data center, which is, it can be on a data center of my premises, or it can be in a colo data center, then what I need to do, I need to define that here. So I need to go into edit and figure out what satellite location I want to use and where is that going to be managed from. Let's say I would manage it from London and then create that particular location. Now, third option you'd see is getting satellite to satellite infrastructure services. So what does this mean is, this is when you buy an appliance from us. So we have our services team, which they are coming with pre-built appliances, which means appliances that are pre-configured, and we'll just ship it to your data center. You will plug in power and network connectivity, and then you will add it here. So these are the three different kind of locations that currently we provide. And then once these locations are defined, you can deploy your services onto these particular satellite locations. So with that, let me go across to the questions that we have. We have a question from Abbas Bhaskar, who's asking, how can we check the data center load balance and performance before selecting the data center? Okay, that's a very good question. Now, when you look at a particular data center, the data center is owned by the customer. It is not owned by IBM. So and we are not really bothered about what kind of uh, data center it is, as long as we are able to connect to that data center using a satellite link, and it can be over internet, it can be over private network as well. Uh, we are fine with the performance. So the thing that you need to take care is your internet bandwidth thing, because all these tunnels are going to get created over internet. So there are some latency requirement uh, that are minimum that you need to take care of. So now there is another question from Prasanna. How can I build, deploy, and manage uh, manage an application? So build, deploy, and manage of an application is taken care by the customer. What we do is we build and deploy and manage the platform. So in case of Red Hat OpenShift, the OpenShift clusters, which are the nothing but the master nodes and worker nodes, are built, deployed, and managed by IBM Cloud. But the application that you run on top of that OpenShift cluster, let's say you're running an NGINX uh, web server, or you're running a particular application that is running on top of Red Hat OpenShift, that you as a customer need to uh, build and manage. But when it comes to the platform, it is managed by us. But when it goes to database as a service, it becomes it becomes a lot more easier, because you are not worried about building the database servers. You're not worried about managing the databases. You're not worried about patching those databases. You're only worried about creating an instance and start using it. So it varies from service to service. But when it comes to an application is always built and managed by the customer. We are talking, when you talk about services, we're talking about the platform services that we provide from IBM Cloud, including Red Hat OpenShift and a database as a service. To take an example, we are also coming up with something called analytics as a service that you're going to hear very soon. There is a question: in case we need such system for running SAP load, will you provide? So at the moment, SAP runs only on virtual machine or a physical server, and it needs an OS. So in satellite, we don't really have OS feature as of now, though we are in the process of adding it because a lot of customers are asking for it. But at the moment, satellite doesn't really cater to SAP. What it caters to is making sense out of that SAP data using an analytics solution. Let's say, for example, IBM's analytics solution, which is Cloud Pak for data. If you want to run Cloud Pak for data on your premises where your recipe data is sitting out of, satellite is going to be a huge use case there, because we'll be able to run Cloud Pak for data on an OpenShift cluster on an autopilot mode. You don't have to worry, but you just have to give infrastructure. It'll run there and start connecting to SAP and start gathering the data from SAP instead of sending it to cloud. Now, there is another question: how is security handled? So if you look at security, we are not touching any of the data layer when it comes to satellite. We are just creating a tunnel that is not even a transport layer tunnel. It's just a tunnel to, it's a heartbeat tunnel to measure and monitor the satellite's connectivity and satellite's health. It is not, it has nothing to do with what you are running out there. So security will remain, the security layer will remain uniform across the platform. It doesn't really matter where you're deploying, whether you're deploying in satellite location, whether you're deploying on-prem, whether you're deploying it in cloud, the security layer remains uniform across. Now, there is another question. I think AWS Outpost offered same capability as IBM Satellite Cloud Service. You're demonstrating what unique and different IBM Satellite is offering to grab the customer. This is from Bipin. So Bipin, an excellent question. To keep it very simple, when it comes to AWS Outpost, there you would only be able to consume AWS services. When it comes to AWS services, that also related to infrastructure. You'll be able to get compute, storage, and and Kubernetes services. Whereas in satellite, it is not. It has nothing to do with infrastructure. It's only platform services that we provide, including CI/CD pipeline, database as a service, container as a service, including OpenShift, and analytics as a service, which is our cloud pack for data that's going to come in the future. So we are offering services rather than infrastructure, because we're not bothered about where the infra is coming from, unlike AWS Outpost, where you also have to spend a lot of money to buy the infrastructure.
The platform, Vibhuti, if I may add, the other thing is that we offer a multi-cloud capability with IBM Cloud Satellite, right? For example, IBM Cloud Satellite can be deployed on AWS. The reverse is not possible, right? It is a mono hybrid cloud solution that AWS Outpost offers, whereas IBM Satellite offers a hybrid multi-cloud solution in the true sense, if I can simplify it in that manner. I see another question which has come up, which is related to the structure and the recent announcement that IBM made about spinning off the services arm or services team of IBM and naming it as Kyndryl. The products that we spoke about, namely IBM Cloud, IBM Cloud Satellite, and the IBM SRE services are core to IBM and will remain with IBM. They will not form part of Kyndryl. Kyndryl, however, will be one of our partners, right? And they will be providing services on IBM Cloud going forward. But the product and the offerings and the SREs that manage IBM Cloud will remain with IBM.
So there is another question from Sanjay Dhar. How is ingress and egress cost optimized, considering there will be heterogeneous cloud and multiple links, which can be satellite link and other links? So when you look at satellite links are not metered. So because it's just a hard bit connection, it doesn't transfer any data. It's just a hard bit connection between IBM Cloud data center and customer's data center to manage and maintain the satellite location and make sure the satellite location is up. So it is a hard bit connection. It doesn't transfer any data. So that's the reason why you don't have to pay any egress or ingress charges for it, because it's not a transport layer connectivity. And another question from Abbas in terms of SLA. Satellite offered the same SLA as of IBM Cloud. There is no difference in SLA from Satellite or IBM Cloud. So whatever SLA you get in IBM Cloud, you'll get the same SLA for services at their satellite location. So of course, since the satellite location infrastructure is owned by the customer, if the infrastructure goes down, we won't be able to do anything. But at the services level, as long as the infrastructure is available, at the services level, you will get the same SLA of IBM Cloud that we provide.
So while we still have time, I urge the audience to send in their questions so that our speakers can address the same. So we'll just wait. So meanwhile, I would like to ask you, where are you in your cloud native journey right now?
Yeah, so that's a question. That's a good question, which is says where exactly are you in your cloud native journey. Now, if you look at the way customers are moving to cloud, right now we are seeing a lot of traction for mission critical workloads now, and that's the reason why we are putting a lot of effort on developing these kind of services like satellite. Because if you see the first phase of cloud adoption where was with simple workloads and a lot of workloads moving into SaaS model, like for example exchange, your messaging solution, email solutions, chat solution moving into SaaS model, and then your application and the cloud native companies adopting cloud. Now, if you look at the wave two of cloud migration, lot of customers are trying to adopt cloud native for their mission critical workloads as well. If you see, more and more customers are trying to adopt containers, more and more customers are trying to adopt uh, database as a service, and more customers are trying to use cloud services for their critical workloads. Let's say whether it is core banking, whether it is your the insurance applications, whether it is your uh, uh, SAP. So right now, people are in the process of moving those to their cloud, and this is where the bulk of cloud migration will happen and bulk of cloud adoption will happen.
Right, right. Thank you. So I again urge the audience, if you haven't sent your questions yet, now is the time. Please send in your questions so that our speakers can address. So there's another question. So do you have a platform independent cloud approach?
Okay, so that is again relating back to the uh, other question that we had, which
Right.
is if you have a cloud native approach, you would see a lot of customers are adopting a cloud independent approach, which means you are not dependent on particular cloud platform. It doesn't really matter where you are running. At any point of time, you can uh, move your workload from one particular cloud to another cloud without even really bothered about what is the underlying platform that you're using. A lot of customers are adopting that way because it gives them the flexibility to move their workload to a cloud that suits them best rather than getting logged into a particular cloud platform. And also it helps them in minimizing their cost, because all clouds are not same, and the reality is people have adopted multi-cloud. Now, depending on the nature of the workload, uh, it will go to a particular cloud destination where you get the best out of it, not just in terms of performance, also in terms of your investment returns as well. So that is why the cloud native and cloud platform independent approach makes sense rather than uh, uh, adopting one single particular cloud and making everything work in there.
Right.
Just to add, Mohit, add to what Vibhuti said. Look, uh, the entire IBM Cloud services, the entire control plane, the entire platform is built on Kubernetes, right? And we don't use proprietary virtualization services while delivering our virtual infrastructure as well, right? The reason why we do that is to champion open standards, right? And we champion open standards because we understand clients more often than not do not like to get tied down to one single platform, because one single platform may not be able to deliver the most optimized performance for all their applications, right? And that is why we heavily encourage people to use open standards. We built our services on Kubernetes. We encourage people to develop on Kubernetes as well as Red Hat OpenShift. We have perhaps the largest ecosystem of open source available on a public cloud hyperscale environment on IBM Cloud, right? I mean, it's quite okay to develop proprietary software because you're in a business, you want to actually encourage customers to use your proprietary software. But what that does is does not do justice to the customer because the customers may be wanting to use a wider bouquet of services which your proprietary service may not offer, right? And that's what we encourage with IBM Cloud. And just to add to your previous question as well, think about use cases in banking and finance, right? When you asked about cloud native journeys, think about use cases in manufacturing industry, let's say, right? Now most of the native journeys that these industries which are sort of regulated either by compliances or regulated by technology, uh, have made are on the front end applications, because that is where they have maximum amount of flexibility, right? They've not been able to adopt a lot of cloud native services on the core, because BFSI, they are bound by compliances. So every application that they use, every platform that they use need to be compliant to all the rules and regulations that the industry follows, right? And which limits the possibilities for them, right, to adopt public cloud on the large scale. Right now what satellite gives them is an opportunity to actually remain within the framework of their rules and regulations, at the same time try and access services and leverage public cloud catalogs from within those frameworks. Imagine a manufacturing situation where you have high precision equipment running in factories, right? And you want to use data that you've accumulated to optimize performance of those high precision equipments. Now, some of these decision making capabilities may need milliseconds kind of response, right? Now, those kind of responses may not be available if you're using a public cloud landscape, which is quite far away from where your factory is located, right? You need those decision making capabilities within the location where the machines are located. Now those are the use case which satellite helps accelerate. If you have a satellite location set up right next to the machines, and process data at that point in time where it is getting generated in the same location, then your decision making happens faster, and the inputs that go back to high precision machinery and all these kind of specialized equipment you know does happen in a faster environment. Those are the kind of problems that we are solving for customers with IBM Cloud Satellite. This is where the true innovation of the product is more.
Right. Thank you for that. So that was indeed an elaborate and detailed response. So I think in the interest of time, I think we have come to the end of this webinar. That was indeed a wonderful session, and I'm sure that there have been many takeaways for the audience today. I thank our speakers Sarju and Bibhuti for sharing the insights, and I also thank the audience for their interest and time in participating in this webinar today. But before we wind up, just a quick reminder that we'll have a short survey form after the end of this webinar. It will open in the web browser. So please make sure that you submit your responses to the same. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.